Challenges we have, and some successes and some of the challenges. Part of the challenge is we're implicitly inviting and promoting change into environments that are highly personalized and non-transparent. That is not always a happy proposition. Right. So we have to go into those areas that are open to the idea of further development and how, in our case, how network connectivity is going to change things theoretically for the better. In the Kenyan example, one of the things that we're finding is the public sector, the government's embrace of change means that they're willing to look at new ways of delivering resources. So one of the things that we're seeing in this evolution of governance is increasing privatization of a public sector function, particularly maybe around citizen-centric services. When you have a public function becoming privatized, you invite in other participants that facilitate it, for example, the IFC. So the IFC will look at a state-run entity but has a P&L, whereas they will not fund a ministry. That's a World Bank job. So as we see the evolution of governance in the United States and in Europe, we're also seeing that happen in terms of models in the emerging world. The Mexican government did this with their austerity decree by law some time ago, but there is a natural evolution. We're seeing it in Brazil, we're seeing it in Ukraine, we're seeing it certainly in Kenya and other places. And then as we have that larger set of stakeholders, then it instructs our CSR activities and where the gaps need to be, and that's where we're already committed to the process. And then we also see how it can hook into our business model and in the fullness of time perhaps return that process, that investment. But it is an investment, and that's really up to each company to determine how they do that.
I just want to comment on, and follow up on a comment that you said earlier, because while government and private sector and non-for-profits and organizations all are stakeholders in this effort, that doesn't mean we all have to do things at the same time together and overcomplicate the process. I think one of the lessons we've learned is how effective it is to try and keep it simple and to try and harness the power of the private sector in different ways. But what I wanted to go back to the comment you made was they understood that we knew how to do it. And you invested time by sending people into USAID to learn what they do, to try and figure things out. That's exactly what we've been able to do, whether it's been with the support of Cisco or Microsoft or a number of other organizations, Best Buy or the Capital Group. We've benefited by having externs or fellows spend a considerable amount of time trying to understand the landscape of the poor from our perspective and how we can affect it. What are the real bottlenecks? What are the issues? And how are the programs and products and services that we're developing key into that? Because of all of this, we've launched a new initiative called Bankers Without Borders, which is a volunteer-based initiative to try and promote this and scale this globally. And what it is, it's not just harnessing the power of the private sector, which is considerable, but it's trying to create this in local markets. And I just wanted to point out a colleague of mine in the audience here, Shannon Maynard, who is directing our program, and I hope you all can speak with her at some point during the conference to learn a little bit more about what we're doing and how we're doing it, because whether it's through local associations, business associations internationally in these markets, or it's through corporations that have taken a longer-term perspective, who want to understand the landscape and understand how the plumbing of the system works before they go in and develop the faucet to release dollars or to release different products and services. It's critically important.
Go ahead. One very quick thing. I think we've seen a trend in the corporate world over the last 20 years of an increased shift of government responsibility financially to corporate responsibility. And I'm not just talking about the US, I'm talking about most of the world, where we're taking much more responsibility for things like education, more responsibility for retirement plans, more responsibility for the medical burden of the aging workforce, etc., etc. If you add that burden to the issue of, yes, we have a responsibility to go into emerging markets and help those markets develop, because in the end it's in our interest. It just puts a different kind of burden proportionately on a global corporation than ever existed before. And one thing I try to do all the time is say, look, we're not complaining specifically about that. We're just saying, please recognize that we're taking huge and new burdens as the private sector And essentially, it's our shareholders that have got to say, okay, we go along with that, which is why one of the things I'm sure in fact, I know you've done it because we've seen some of your things, is to have a forensically constructed return on investment calculation for everything you do, even for corporate social responsibility. And we find that goes back down extremely well with our shareholders.
A return on investment point, since I brought up the are you willing to lose money?
That's right. The answer is no.
Back on, well, then some companies really need to have a longer term view, because I honestly, when I talk to them at USTR, because they're coming to us wanting us to do all these trade issues for them, they are resistant to go in and build capacity of smaller companies. Take my word for it. Everybody's happy here, but when they're in my office, they're grumbling, okay? But there are a couple in here, Cisco included, Microsoft, Intel, and others. I don't know everybody in the audience, so I apologize if I missed someone. The World Bank has done a recent study, Aid for Trade Facilitation. And if you look at their evaluation of money that is put into customs and improving facilities at the border. Cisco's big on this a lot. We've talked frequently about this on the business side of what you do, not CSR. Well, first of all, increased trade trumps foreign assistance through for developing countries. So bang for your buck, if you get developing countries trading more, you're going to help them develop much more than simply here's $1 of foreign assistance. The World Bank report has shown that for $1 invested in this issue of improving their border facilities, you get a return of $896. That's a huge investment, and they have a full study. I just looked at the summary of it, and you can go into more details, but I just wanted to leave that because we seem to continue to drift back towards education and others, and I know corporate social responsibility folks like to work on that, but since I'm of the trade ministry, I figured I'd bring it back. I'd bring it back to the economic side of that, so just take a look at that report.